everybody. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you're having a great Saturday so far and an amazing weekend. My name is Don Terrell. I want to welcome you to another great episode, our last episode of the quarter of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that you know I'm ecstatically crazy about. You know the drill. Hop into the comments. Say, hey, where you tuning in from? While I make sure that we are up and running on all the channels that we are supposed to be up and running on. But again, we are here every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and website for the show. But I do always encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that kind of good stuff. That way you get notified of when the show goes live and great content goes up on the channel. Again, hop on over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, become a part of the community as well. YouTube at Don Terrell. Also, you can find us on Spotify and some of those other great audio channels like Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. We are also on. And looking to get on more. So definitely you can listen to some of the audio versions of the show on Spotify. Definitely download, give a review, shout out, a like, thumbs up. That definitely helps the algorithm as well. Also, I definitely want to make sure this year that I push supporting the channel. Obviously, I cannot continue to do this without you, the viewers, and my supporters as well. We're definitely working on getting the Patreon portion of the show up, but you can support the channel through Venmo. Buymeacoffee.com. I love a good cup of coffee. I love coffee. So you can buymeacoffee.com/Don Terrell and support. All that goes towards helping me to continue to create great content, to do the show, and do all the stuff that I continue to do. Mr. Michael, man, oh man. What's up, little bro? Let's go, Charles. Definitely looking forward to Charles, the next guest. Super excited, Michael, to have you stop by, man. It's been a minute for sure. And definitely, again, cannot thank you enough for, joining us on this last little quarter before we take a short hiatus break. And definitely going to get with you, Michael, because I told you there's something I'm wanting to do. And I have you in mind. Is helping me with that. So definitely going to be reaching out to you during hiatus. But definitely, we got a lot of big things planned second quarter of this season. During hiatus, I'm going to be testing out. So I'm excited about possibly being able to announce that we're going to be also live streaming at the same time on Instagram, on our Instagram channel. As you know, we do have an Instagram channel, but we don't stream there live because obviously, really, I stream horizontally, 16:9. But now we're able to simultaneously stream horizontally and vertically to our different channels. So I'm going to be testing that out during hiatus. So super excited to finally be able to be live streaming to Instagram, to the Instagram channel vertically and not horizontally. So super looking forward to that. Yeah, man, I know your schedule is crazy, man. You're all over the place. I see you all over the place. You and your wife are just getting around, doing a lot of different things, man. Working with AI too. So I'm super excited to talk with you more about that. Man, so I'm super looking forward, again, like Mr. Michael said, our next guest, Charles, and I think I got all the little housekeeping stuff out the way. I don't know. It seems like Facebook is acting a little finicky. So definitely let me know if you're not watching it or if there is a problem from Facebook, because it looks like the Facebook broadcast is giving me an issue. So you may have to jump over to either LinkedIn or the YouTube channel to check out today's episode. Again, I can't thank my next guest for coming on and really helping us close out this first quarter. This first quarter has been fire with the guests that we have had on the show, and we have got some more amazing ones lined up throughout the rest of season 6. So, man, some big things planned. With that, I think that is pretty much it. And I think we can pretty much get the show on the road. What do you say? Hey? Wow, we are back and ready to get this one on the road. Like I said, I'm super excited about my next guest. And without further ado, my next guest is from Washington, D.C., and got into the game. Oh, that's right. Got into the game industry in kind of an old school way, which we're going to dive into. His very first job working in games was in QA at Bethesda Game Studio. That's a good game studio, which he did for a year before he was able to build up enough of a portfolio to set out as a freelance character artist, which was his start as an artist. He's currently collaborating with a friend on their tabletop role playing game called Robot Cowboy of Mars, which all the links for that will be in the show notes. So everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Charles Metze the Third.
Thank you, Don. Nice to be here.
Charles. Man, like I was telling you before the show, man, I cannot thank you enough for helping us close out quarter one of this amazing season 6.
I
So
am
thank you,
happy and
thank you,
honored to be here.
thank
More
you,
than
thank
happy
you,
and
thank
honored.
you. And we were talking a lot before before the show, and I always like to kind of start out, asking guests the question of what was it initially that kind of sparked that initial interest for you, younger, that this was
Hmm.
something that you thought you might enjoy doing or would want to do?
Um, I guess for me, it like I always had an interest in like video games. When I was a
Was there
kid,
a specific video game that kind of did it for
yeah,
you, or
the catalyst for me, or at least the game that got me started just playing video games, was actually the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Um,
okay?
and I remember because my dad, I guess someone had told him that like the Sega Genesis was this thing that'd be great for kids to get. So he brought it home one day and he had me playing it. And I was so like I guess young, and so the idea of like video games was so foreign to me because it was the first game I'd ever played. I couldn't figure out how to finish the first level, so my dad had to help me play Sonic the Hedgehog. But like I was hooked like at that point, to the point where like I remember I would buy like 3 or 4 different video game magazines a month when I was like a teenager because I was so hungry for
Okay.
like information, whether it be previews or reviews or just seeing people's opinions about what made a good game and what made a bad game. And it just kind of, I never thought about it as a career though until like when I was getting ready for college, I knew I wanted to be an illustrator because like I was always a doodler when I was a kid and I was always drawing. But our program at the college that I went to, which was Howard University, I was in the fine arts program, and they didn't have an illustration program, but they had a graphic design program. So I went in
Mm.
there, and I started thinking more and more about the future, like 5 years ahead, and I remember thinking to myself, well, okay, I know I want to work in and around, like, I want to be an artist. I want to draw things. Like, what careers are there? And that's what led me to sort of learning about concept art. Because again, going back to my dad, he'd gotten to me a book from the library, which was The Art of the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, like the book,
Mm,
the concept
yeah,
art book for it. And
yeah.
that was when like the first light bulb went off in my head. Whoa,
People
people
get
get
paid.
paid to design art things for entertainment. I wonder
Oh
if
man.
that exists in games. And sure enough, concept artists are things for games. And then I started doing more research because I am very research driven. And that's when I realized, oh crap, there's like only like 2 or 3 concept artists working on any given game project. That's a really super competitive thing. But maybe this 3D thing part of it would be easy. And again, I didn't know what I was talking about, right? Because I'd done research, but not that much. So I was like, maybe the 3D part of this would be easier to break into. So
Yeah,
that's when I decided, like, well, I love characters and character design, so I'll be a character artist. And I
yeah,
dove headfirst into the deep end of the pool, and that's probably like what started everything off. I was ravenous with just wanting to learn about how to make characters.
yeah. So how do you make that jump? Because you said Howard was like fine illustration or fine arts, right?
Yeah,
So how do
yeah.
you make that jump from okay, what you learned at Howard to getting into once you graduated, getting into a position of character design and character art type of thing?
Yeah, so part of it was down to luck because Howard at the time had had a substantial investment from General Motors because the head of like the General Motors design department was a Howard University graduate and he had
Mm,
seen what the future was, so he had gotten GM in partnership with Howard and they were donating money to basically set up a program for 3D
yeah,
art. And I wasn't a part of that program. I was in the graphic design program, but I had taken like elective classes in there and had been introduced to sort of 3D modeling basics. Like I started out on like Maya 8,
mm,
from way back then. And what this had basically done for me is it had, because I had sort of picked up, how do you do basic modeling and stuff there, I kept hanging around that lab for what we called electronic studio. Like I was a constant fixture, even though it wasn't my major and I wasn't getting a degree in it.
who
To
is
the
this kid
point,
hanging around?
exactly, to the point where the faculty basically gave me the pin code so I could just come and go as I pleased. So
Yeah,
basically, I would do my classes for graphic design. I'd just do my studies, and then every spare time I had on campus, I would be in the electronic studio computer lab on the software
yeah,
learning everything that I could. And like I'd be on the internet trying to pore over, if I read about something in a video game magazine, hey, this brand new tech is coming out, I'd be on the internet trying to figure out what it's about, how does it apply to games,
yeah,
and like that led me into forums. And back then the big forums were like CG Talk if you wanted to get into VFX, and there was Polycount, which was like the mecca if you wanted to learn real-time art and you wanted to like see other people that were doing it and were up and coming. And there was also Game Artisans, and I got into all these spaces to learn as much as I could as fast as I could and just be a basic sponge. And I was
yeah,
always want asking questions. I was always researching. I was always trying to learn more. And that's basically kind of what started me down the path, is hanging around all these, dedicated online spaces that were basically for people that wanted to get better, wanted to learn what it took, and wanted to grow. So even before like I graduated, I already understood like this is a massive uphill million to one kind of thing, right?
yeah,
Like getting like this sort into this sort of career. So like I wasn't shocked or surprised at the amount of work it would take to build a competitive portfolio.
yeah, yeah. So before you kind of discovered, character design and 3D, and you were just thinking illustration, you wanted to be an illustrator.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
path were you kind of looking at? Because again, we're kind of similar in the sense that graphic design, kind of a designer and illustration, and I was into comic strips and cartoons, so I wanted to be a comic strip illustrator and cartoonist type of thing. But were you thinking there was a path, or you just what kind of illustrator were you thinking that you would be or would think you
Yeah.
were? before you came into character design and discovered, okay, there's this path?
I hadn't 100% figured it out. And this goes back to the whole research thing. So like I was looking through my options. All that I knew is that I want to I want to be an artist. I want to make stuff, and I want to make characters. And I knew that illustration was one path because it was the most obvious, path to me open at the time. I knew I didn't want to go into fine art just because everything that I had learned about like the fine art world was that, man, like that is a real uphill challenge, like having to sell your work in a gallery and like having to like make your bones, like,
It's a lot. Yeah, I have a
yeah.
friend. He's a fine artist, and really a damn talented one. He does black fine art, really,
Hmm.
beautiful pieces. But yeah, he's it's taken him a while to get to that level to where the recognition,
Exactly.
people recognizing him and recognizing what he does and stuff. That's a lot. And
Yeah.
there's not that instant kind of thing in fine arts, you know.
Yeah. So for me, it was definitely looking like, okay, I know I wanted to go into commercial art, right? So I was figuring, okay, well, maybe I can get into an advertising agency and be an illustrator there, or like work graphic design in there. Like those were the paths I was looking down
Yeah.
before, like I said, there was that epiphany moment where I was like, oh, entertainment means artist.
And see, I feel like you made that great choice because as you were saying that, I did go the route of commercial
Hmm.
advertising, marketing. And it's funny because I was talking to another friend and they're a designer and they've worked for this one company doing design work, you know, for like 10 plus years. And
Right.
all of a sudden finds they're now out on the job market because they got let go and, have to, find. So, but they're realizing that they've been asleep on all these skills that they were so comfortable in this job. All they were doing was focusing on these fonts, these colors for this brand. And so they
Yeah.
really didn't push themselves skill wise, even if it was their own projects outside of work, pushing themselves skill wise to where they found out at once they were out, man, all these tools and all these things out here now that I got to catch up and learn and get myself up to speed with. So there is that trap of, you know, getting into like a commercial job and you're one cog in the wheel type of thing to where you don't it's easy to lose your creative space unless you practice it outside or do
That
something
edge.
outside that
Yeah.
kind of keeping your skill set and yourself sharp on things. And it's unless you happen to fall into a job that really pushes you skill
Hmm.
wise, it's easy. But those in commercial are very rare, you know.
Yeah, and getting rarer like every year. But like I totally understand what you mean. Like it's hard to keep that edge when you get comfy or you're in a position that allows you to even remotely feel comfortable, right? Like even though like working in games is hyper competitive, I still have a ton of personal projects that I have going on where I'm like
Yeah,
trying out this, learning that because like you kind of have to stay hungry.
yeah. And I think that's how most artists say that's really, how they push their skills, their own personal projects and
Oh
doing
yeah.
things and discovering things, type of stuff. So keeping yourself going in that, I think, is crucial. That's kind of my
100%.
a
And
goal I set for myself this year. Personal
every
projects.
like top shelf artist that like I know, like all of, like my friends who are like still actively working, like all of them are basically the same. Where like you ask them, what are you working on? And they can tell you like two or three personal projects they're juggling because
Yeah,
they want to keep learning and they want to
yeah.
keep building.
And it's interesting because I did not know that. Well, I wasn't aware of it. I knew they Howard had just recently, like I said, kind of got an endowment to where they are doing more like 3D and more
Hmm.
computer based courses. But I didn't know they had a illustration course. How what was the thought of going there for illustration as opposed to say going to a more like Savannah or
Yeah.
Ringling or something like that is really most come from, I guess.
Yeah. So I think for me, it came down to two things. One was that my dad had actually taught at Howard for 10 years, so I was already
Cool.
super familiar with the university. um, and I was already like really comfortable with understanding like what Howard was and what Howard is. Two was it was already in DC, so and
Yeah.
I'm from DC, so like it was already local. I already knew the city, so it'd be a smooth transition. And like the third one was is that I got a scholarship that basically took care of all of my undergrad stuff
That
outside of
helps.
like yeah, outside of like books and stuff. I think for all my undergrad years up until because I ended up doing 5 years undergrad because I had screwed up a little bit of my schedule for like the first couple years, and then I got back on track and everything signed up. But the first 4 years were completely taken care of in terms of finances. I had a full scholarship so long as I kept my GPA up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I did grad school at Howard as well and got my master's degree, and that was the only thing I had to pay out of pocket.
So your master's degree is in
Is in
the
3D modeling and
3D modeling.
animation.
Okay,
Yeah.
in animation.
So I
Cool.
actually did go back to that electronic studio program so I was like, y'all finally got me.
He
You
said, I
got
got an
me.
actual key, I got an actual room key that I paid for.
I'm already here.
Yeah. Oh man. So what was the one? Obviously, Howard's, a venerable institution, and a great HBCU, for sure.
Hmm.
What was the experience like as far as meeting other creators of color that were there? Like you said, trying to sharpen their skills, get better at what they were, you know, hoping to step into.
Yeah, it was like a warm blanket in a way because like you especially like at that time period because yeah the internet was a thing but wasn't like today where just everyone is out there on the internet showing who they are and what they do. So it was still a situation, at least for me back then, where seeing so many people of color that were creatives, right, and that not only were creatives, everyone that I hung around were just huge nerds, just huge dorks and like
Yeah.
nerds and geeks. So seeing that many people of color who were all into similar things that I was in. Like they all loved animation. They all like they could talk. We could talk about comic books. We could talk about like all these cool movies. We could talk about games. Oh man, did you pick up Killzone 2? Yeah, I picked up Killzone 2. How far did you get? Hey, I'll lend you my copy.
Yeah.
Like
I'm sure it's a totally different vibe and experience. Like I said, I went to the Art Institute here in Houston, so I'm
yeah,
sure I would have loved to have gone and had the HBT, you experience, and you know, learn 3D, and like you said, been around other creators of color that you just you know can absorb so much at a great institution like that.
yeah. It was a beautiful thing to just be surrounded with people that like you don't necessarily always see being creative like this or see just being unabashed and like happy nerds about being creative, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
sitting down with another person of color and like just talking about watercolors for like an hour, or
yeah.
like talking about like rendering pipelines that like you don't know what they are but you heard about them and like do they know anything about it?
Oh man, yeah, it's nothing like having specific conversations with people that just understand the jargon
Yeah.
that you're talking and what you're vibing on, type of thing, and you can just talk and talk for hours. Which again is why I love doing the show, because you just talk and talk and talk for hours about this industry and space that you just love and can geek out on, like you said.
Yeah, and like I still think back on a lot of that stuff very fondly because it doesn't matter like that it didn't tie directly into like my career path, right? It,
Yeah,
what it does matter to me is the feeling of community that I was able to have
yeah,
there. That
yeah.
I think that was especially important.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody just jumping in. We are having an amazing conversation with my man and friend, Mr. Charles Metze III. Definitely hop into the comments, engage, and interact. I always say it's an interactive show, so I want you to interact. Obviously, you were saying your father was a teacher at Howard,
Hmm.
so I guess your parents weren't as kind of skeptical about the choice of illustration, or
I wouldn't say that. I
maybe
wouldn't say that.
maybe I'm speaking out of turn. You can clarify that for me, but I would hope, since your dad is an instructor, he would at least see the path that you could go on with it. But
Like for like my parents, at the end of the day, I think every parent, they want to make sure that when their child goes out into the world that they can, like, earn a paycheck and pay some
don't come
bills
home.
and eat. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think there was initial skepticism until, and then, but ultimately there was acceptance, and like my mom and my dad were like, look, this is your life and this
Yeah,
is your future, and
yeah,
we see, and like, giving all credit to them, they didn't raise a fool, right? I wasn't walking blindly into it. Like I was saying, like before, I did obsessive amounts of research because I wanted to know what I was getting myself into, because ultimately you have to accept that, like, I could try to do this for 5 years and it might never work out. Am I okay with that?
yeah.
And ultimately they were like, you know what, this is your choice and we support you. And considering like the places I've worked in the career I've had, like they were right to make that decision to trust me, a few times over.
Good choice. Yeah, I said okay. It's a good choice. Good choice. Uh, during, we talked about this a little before, the show. That especially this time, we're going it through as far as, just the industry. And you were talking about you've been very fortunate, very blessed to be working rather regularly, not have too long a downtime type of thing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Like I said, you're a creative just like all of us, having to deal with the things that are going on within the industry.
Yeah.
You're a journeyman type of artist, in a sense, trying to find something stable. What are your thoughts on this kind of space that we're in now, as far as creatives and just a creator, content creator?
Well, we're definitely like in a very, speaking specifically for the game industry, but like this also applies to like the VFX industry as well. Been in a worse position for longer than the game industry, has been. But we're in a really, really terrible period of contraction, like all across the boards. And like I feel for like people who are just wanting to hop into like the industry now, right? But they don't have the experience. They can't say they've worked at this place or that place, or they've shipped this or they've shipped that yet. And for them, like there's so many more closed off doors, and I really feel for them because, admittedly, like my path into the industry wasn't like super super clean. It was rocky, but at the very least, there were an abundance of places I could apply to, and like now, a lot, like it's every month it feels like there's another studio that's saying, well, we had to let go of half our people or we had to close it down.
Yeah,
So like it's a really dark time, but I mean, I don't see it forever being a dark time, because at some point the dust will settle. And like I've heard a lot of people saying, well, the industry's crashing, and like, no, no, it's not crashing, because we're selling titles like nobody's business. Like
yeah,
we're seeing record breaking sales across the board. It's not that the industry's crashing. We're having a period of contraction that's been brought on by a lot of economic factors, for one thing. There's a lot more outsourcing than there used to be.
yeah,
So the cost of development in the US is just so much more expensive than it was in the past, and you're seeing an explosion of talent globally that's increasing competition. You're
yeah,
seeing the rise of generative AI tools, which are, even if they're not there yet, they're still like seeing a lot of studios dive headfirst into that, and they're pushing out a lot of their in-house,
yeah,
talent. And you're seeing post COVID, there was a lot of inflation in the industry, because, and I've seen a few like CEOs just come out and say this, well, we kind of didn't expect the numbers to go back down after COVID. We thought people would hop into the games, and they would love it so much they'd stay, and it's like it didn't happen. Stuff,
yeah.
the graph went down.
Oh man, and it's interesting that you said that, because I had a couple of shows ago on. He was on first quarter. This I think he was my second guest this year or third. Patrick
Hmm.
Justman, um, uh, indie game developer out of Wisconsin. Yeah, up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, Green Bay,
Mm.
Green Bay, Green Bay area. Um, but what's your thought as far as like indie, like game developing? Because it, like you said, a lot of people, the industry, game industry is $1 billion industry. Most people think it's down or really, you know, having its hard time, but it really is doing, relatively well. But with the tools now that are coming out, such as Unreal, Blender, that are really putting in the hands of just regular individual
Yeah.
creators, do you see that starting to rise more?
Oh
Um,
God, yeah. Like there has never been a if you've always wanted to make a game, and I mean any game. Hopefully the game you want to make is not like an MMO as one person. Like please nobody do that. But if you ever just wanted to make a game, there has never been a greater variety of tools available to you. You have Unreal Engine, you have Unity, you have Godot, you have like probably two or three that I'm forgetting, like off the two or
Blender,
three other
you
ones that I'm
make a
forgetting off the top
game
of
in
my head.
Blender if you really want to. Blender is a game engine. You can make or has a game renderer.
And in terms of modeling tools, right? Like you don't have to go to Autodesk and try and get a copy of Maya or Max anymore. Like that, you got Blender now, and with the most recent updates that they've had, like
Mm.
it's a surprisingly robust and capable tool yet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
That's what I
like
use. Blender. Yeah.
yeah, if you just want to make stuff, this is the time. Like myself, I made a birthday gift for my girlfriend a couple years ago where I made her a Game Boy game. Like I made her an actual physical Game Boy Color game. Like she where like it was like a 20-minute game. It came. I built like I got it flashed onto a cartridge so that you could play it on actual hardware.
Oh
Designed
wow,
designed an
nice.
instruction booklet, a box for it, like complete custom like game. Like I wouldn't
Yeah,
have been able to do that 20 years ago, but now like you can make any sort of game you want these days,
yeah,
assuming, of course, that you have the patience and the willingness to learn and the ability to just sort of take a crack at it.
yeah, yeah.
Now, is that going
Well,
to make you money? Maybe, maybe not. Like, but if you just want to make something,
yeah,
you can do it.
yeah, yeah. And that depends. Again, I think that's the beauty of of kind of this time that we're in as far as creatives.
Yeah,
You can do it. It's really going to be you're not capped as you would be at a
yeah,
job. You can go
yeah.
as high as you want. It's going to take a lot of work on your part and a lot of
Hmm.
effort on your part, but you're not capped by your ceiling that you can go and your imagination that you can go. And
Yeah.
especially like you were just mentioning with all the tools that we got out here, and not even in animation. You can go to editing tools. There are so many great editing tools out there,
Oh,
DaVinci,
yeah.
CapCut, that are just free or just very inexpensive now. And you got all these channels now to get your idea out there: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, to
Oh,
showcase what you do.
hmm.
So this generation and this rise of independent creators, especially in this era of IP, controlling your own IP and being able to use it. Do you feel? And this is my thought. And let me know what your thought is. Do you feel like creators today now have to be kind of they find themselves multidisciplinary artists? They're not just doing one thing. They could be doing they're making their
Yeah.
revenue through multiple streams. That's what I mean. They're not
Yeah.
just generating revenue from their 9 to 5 job or this and that. They've got these things out there.
We're definitely in the era of everyone in general sort of trying to tap into their creative potential and then trying to monetize that. Like it's accelerated at a point like we've never seen before. And you go back, you have people who, for instance, are making a living on YouTube just offering commentary and essays on video games they loved as a kid, right?
Yeah,
Like
no,
that's a path. Like to the
no.
point where they're parlaying that into like, oh yeah, you can find my content on all of these platforms. You can buy my latest book. Like
Man,
that
you
was
see
never an
some of
option.
those I wish I had like streamer numbers. Just
Yeah.
they're gaming, they're just playing games, and they got like 300 or 400 people on the stream watching them play a video game. I'm like, wow.
So like the doors have opened wide for people to sort of tap into what it is they want to do, and then trying to find a way to like make that an economically viable thing. And it might never be the situation where like, you're walking away with it with some massive bag and buying houses left and
Yeah,
right. But even if it's just, some pocket change or coffee
yeah,
money, at the end of the day, that's still, you were able to finance that through this thing that you're passionate about and that you care a lot about.
yeah. Well, I know Jonathan Winbush was like my first guest this
Mhm.
quarter. He kicked off season 6, but he was talking about, and like, which is why I was saying that creators are doing a bunch of stuff, whether they got sponsors, whether they got a course, whether they're doing this, that, and the other thing. And he was saying, you know, you don't make a lot of money like on one thing. It all
Oh
adds up.
yeah,
Like
you
he
got to
said, I don't make a
diversify.
lot on YouTube. I make enough to, maybe pay for this and pay for that. But, there's other things that add up to the whole, like his
Yeah.
speaking or courses or whatnot. So that's what I was saying. It seems like creators are finding, like you said, just different ways that they can monetize their IP.
Hmm.
However that might be, whether it's illustrating books, selling children's books, or whatever, that type of
Yes, and
thing.
self-publishing has blown up
Self-publishing
too.
and
Yeah.
and that, which is why again, it's a great time because you can self-publish. If you want to fund, there's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo, that if you really want to get money and people to really back it, your idea. So there's all these things out there that make it possible now for the average everyday person to just really ascend the heights and really get their thing, and especially if it blows up on social media type of thing,
Yeah.
that just propels them.
And it's all about like momentum at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, it, and it goes back to like the whole thing about building community, because if I decide tomorrow, hey, I'm going to start a Kickstarter and nobody knows about it,
Yeah,
you know, maybe I'll get lucky and somebody kicks me $5. But like if I put in the work to like make people aware of this cool thing that I'm trying to bring to life, and like I'm sharing them and making them a part of the process, then I go, hey guys, we've reached a point where like, maybe we can bring this thing to like full life. Here's a Kickstarter for it. You know that's th- that's leveraging that community. That's allowing people to like have a part in the success, right? And people like a story, so that's one thing that like I've noticed repeatedly, is that in terms of like bringing success, you give people a story that they can be a part of, that they can read a part of, and people are going to get invested in what it is you have to say and what it is you have to do.
yeah, no, no. And again, and I tell people, because I talk a lot about branding and marketing, and what I do, and it goes along like that. People want to feel like they're a part of your company. So as a
Hmm.
brand, you should be talking to your community because they want to feel like they're invested in your product or service that you're offering out. So
Yeah.
I think that's how you connect. Everybody just jumping on. Like I said, engage. We are having an amazing conversation. We're going to take a look at some of Charles's work as we continue on with the conversation. Where's I think here? I always want to start with this one. No, that's not it. I always hit the wrong one. Okay, as I get it, I gotta get this scene is like my working space is way overly complicated. After 6 years, I got a lot of stuff in my working space that I gotta clean out uh, during this hiatus for sure. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This is the first one. What did you use
Oh
for
yeah.
this? Is this
Oh, so that's actually entirely rendered real time in Unreal Engine.
Unreal? I
Yeah,
have
so
not
that's
taken the
Unreal Engine.
dive into learning. I have it on my computer. I just haven't dove into.
There's never a better time. There's a wealth of really great getting started in Unreal things. You can be up and running and like doing stuff in a day.
Oh man, and I guess that's. I guess maybe the downside of being a creator. There's so many tools out there that
Yeah.
you have to learn and just be a part of and want to get into. Like I said, I'm just diving. Well, a few years now, but I'm really trying to learn Blender. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of you were saying you kind of started on Maya. I started learning 3D on Softimage. I don't know if you remember that one.
Oh yes, yes I do.
That's what I started learning, and it quickly killed my love for 3D.
The tools at that point were not. They took a lot
Oh
to like
man,
get something looking.
oh man, that quickly killed it. But then, like I said, well, we'll take a look at this one. This is a nice one too. Unreal, or was this? What's this in?
That was rendered out of Marmoset Toolbag, but it's also Unreal compliant, so like all the textures and materials and stuff carry over into Unreal.
Yeah. Like I said, there's so many tools. I moved from what brought me back was Lightwave. When I got a hold of Lightwave, okay, I like 3D and I can wrap my head around 3D. I can
I
wrap
had a
my head
professor that
around
was
it.
all about Lightwave back in school.
Oh man, Lightwave definitely saved it for me because Softimage was, yeah, that was just too technical. Like, which is why I haven't dove into Maya or it's just a little too much, you know.
Yeah, I can understand that, and Blender, especially nowadays with the wealth of tools and stuff, if it's your first 3D application, like you're gonna do fine.
What are
And
some of the
slowly
other
picking
ones?
up.
I mean, like I said, there's so many out there. Substance for texturing and that. What are some of
Yeah.
the other tools that you have in your pipeline that
So I
would you
mean,
say are
if
staples?
if we want to talk like industry standard stuff, the usual ones that I'm going to cycle through would be I use Maya as my primary modeling application because most of the places where I've worked have pretty strong legacy pipelines, so they're
Mm.
more or less built around Maya. But Maya is usually my modeling software. I use ZBrush for sculpting, although I did learn Mudbox back in the day,
Oh yeah,
even though
Mud is that
it's
Mudbox still around? Is Mudbox
I
still?
I I don't, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think it's still around, but I remember they took the Mudbox tool set and integrated it into Maya, but they never
Mm.
continued development on it. So like, it's just there.
Oh okay, okay. Yeah, I
And
remember
then
Mudbox.
I use Marvelous Designer if I'm going to be doing any sort of cloth work. If I want to make sure the cloth is like very, very realistic, I'll do cloth simulation in Marvelous Designer. I do when I'm working for real time stuff. I'll do all of my baking and all of my preview stuff out of Marmoset Toolbag. I've used XGen for hair. I've used Wrap 3D to transfer topology. Um, what
There's a
else?
lot that
Oh,
goes
Houdini.
into game. Do you prefer doing the whole kind of thing, or are you kind of siloed in that you just do this type of thing for for the what you're doing?
I I love the opportunities when I can own a whole character, and sometimes that will mean rigging and skinning, which I have done rigging and skinning professionally, like over the years, but it's not the thing that I'm super super happy about. It's like one of those things where yeah, I totally can do it, like
Yeah,
I'll get it done, but like if I can just stick to like the modeling and the texturing of a complete character, I will be more than happy. But if necessary, I'll stretch into other roles, and that's how I got into tech art. At the
yeah,
end of the day, is like stretching into other roles and picking up new skills.
yeah. As I was saying earlier, my friend Patrick Justman that was on the game they're doing 217 is a real psychological
Mhm.
thriller type of game, and I thought it was really cool. What are the type of games that, you said you kind of grew up on Sonic the Hedgehog type of game. I loved. I mean, wasn't a huge gamer, but I did love video games. I was an asteroids type of person
Mhm.
and that type of thing. Didn't really get into too much like the home
Console
system type,
stuff.
yeah, home console type of thing.
Right.
But what are the type of games that you enjoy playing and that you enjoy creating for?
Um, I think the games that tend to connect with me are games that like have a story that they want to tell me and a story they want to pull me through. The genre doesn't necessarily matter. Like there's so many genres I love. I'm a big horror fan, for instance, so I love survival horror games like your Resident Evils and your Silent Hills. But then
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I also love RPGs. I'll play first person shooters. Like if you have a story and an interesting world for that story to take place in, I'm probably going to be down to like have a run through. And I'm also like I'm an artist, so like I'm a sucker for good art direction.
Yeah, yeah. You again, you mentioned that the first game was Sonic the Hedgehog. Obviously, Sonic's been translated into film and this and
Yeah.
that. As you see games getting translated like Arcane into
Oh
beautiful
yeah.
pieces, what are your thoughts about how like video games and games are being translated and moved into these bigger productions? Because I always loved that about games. In the beginning they had almost this theatrical piece that then dropped you into the game type of thing.
I think the most successful game adaptation we have right now is actually the Fallout TV series on Amazon Prime, in that even if you've never played the games, it's an amazing introduction to the world of Fallout, and it's also just a good story with great characters. But if you have played the game, you recognize everything you're seeing. You recognize the archetypes that the characters in the show represent from like you playing the games, and it creates this really great synergy where
Mhm.
the show is telling a wholly unique story. It's not retreading old ground. It's using the world as a launch pad to tell something new, but people who are familiar with that universe can still engage with it and love it and feel like they're getting an authentic experience. And people that have never, done anything with Fallout can still feel like they're getting this fantastical thing that they've never like seen before. And I think right now Fallout's definitely like the most successful adaptation that we've had. And I think there have been enough rough starts and failures when it comes to adapting games media to film that they're starting to figure out like the best way to translate the medium, because at the end of the day a game has 15 to 200 hours to tell its story to you, right? And a
Yeah,
film a film has 2, and a TV show maybe has 20
yeah,
hours like to tell you a story. So
yeah,
it's never going to be a perfect fit, and I'm usually pretty cool with what I'm watching if they shift things around and they mix things up and they put different spins on it.
yeah.
But it is refreshing to see stuff that is able to like lock onto the essence and correctly translate that across.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not again wasn't a big gamer like that, and I hadn't realized how big League of Legends was as far as
Oh yeah.
gaming. Um, as far as like you said, how they translated, I'm pretty sure. Obviously, as I was watching kind of the behind the scenes and they're making of, obviously they had to expand on a lot of the characters and add stuff into it to
Hmm.
flesh it out into a whole thing. But overall, what was your thought? Because like you said, you just said Fortress was probably the closest one that you've seen that translated
Arcane is
from.
also a really really good one in terms of like being able to like expand the world. And like Arcane, like I consider Arcane and Fallout right now to be the gold standards, in that Fallout is a very lovingly presented translation of the world, and Arcane is a really loving expansion of the world, right? Because League of Legends, at the end of the day, there's a lot of story around it, but
Hmm.
not necessarily if you're playing a match of League are you getting story
Yeah.
fed into you. The game's mechanics just aren't really built around that. So it forced them to like really take a step back and really expand and solidify a lot of parts of the world. And one of the reasons why I think Arcane is so successful is because it was it was like Riot's baby, right?
Yeah.
Like Riot, the game studio,
Right.
wanted this show to come out. They were heavily involved in it,
Yeah.
and they were walking along with every step of the production. And it's the same thing for the Fallout TV show, in that Bethesda Game Studio was walking hand in hand with them to make sure that this was like a real representation.
Mhm. Everybody just jumping in again. We're having a great conversation. To this point, what's kind of been the best piece of advice that somebody's given to you that's helped you? You know.
So honestly, the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten is incredibly simple, and it's resonated with me throughout my entire career, and it was just don't be a dick. Like, and it's well, the full thing was like, if you're going to be a dick, you need to be the greatest, the most amazing person in terms of technical skill out there. Like undeniably the
Oh
top of the
man.
shelf, 100%. Those are the only people that can get away with it. Everybody else, just be collaborative. Work with your with the people next to you. Like, help them. Be open to help. Like, communicate. Like, all these basic things that we teach kids. In terms of like being good people. It carries across into something as community and network driven as like the game industry, and it comes down to, if word gets around that just nobody wants to work with you, nobody's going to want to work with you,
Oh,
like, period. And
yeah.
if it comes down to you and another candidate, and someone heard like, oh yeah, I worked with that Charles guy, it was terrible,
Yeah.
like it was not a good experience. Like, he's a good artist, but like, if you got other choices, go with him. Like, that
Yeah.
will follow you around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It does. It does. And before I respond to that, you know how I like to drop bombs. I have to drop a bomb on that. Yeah, we were talking about just the nature before the show. We were just talking about just the nature of the industry, and really it goes beyond just this industry. Just being a nice person and social, engaging with people goes a long way with really bringing other opportunities for you, type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And if if people genuinely like connect with you, they're like, "Hey, you know what? I've always enjoyed our talks. I've always enjoyed reaching out to you for help. I love, when you showed me your work. I'd love for us to work together in the future." That has meaning, right? When something comes up, they're going to have, "Oh yeah, I know so and so is looking." And like, that's actually how like my whole career kind of got started, because like, when I was initially looking for freelance, the very 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 first freelance contract I ever got was because a friend of mine, that I had made just by being a part of various 3D art communities. She was already full up on work, and someone had reached out to her asking like, "Hey, would you be interested in freelancing on this project?" And she was too busy, so she contacted me and was like, "Hey, these people reached out. I can't take it. Would you be interested in doing it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, I'm looking for freelance now." And she put us in contact, and that was the very first contract that I had. And once you get that first thing, and you can say like, "Yes, I have been paid to do art for like a game project," you can call yourself a professional at that point,
Yeah,
and
well,
you can start trying.
was that for character design, or what was that very first gig for?
It it was a little bit of, it was for full-fledged like character production, in terms of like character modeling, sculpting, texturing, and everything, but it was also partially character design, because what the project was is a studio in, I believe it was France. They were working on like a web miniseries, but it also had like a video game tie-in component to it, and the main character of the miniseries needed to be represented at various stages in their life throughout time and alternate like time periods. So I had to sculpt a likeness of him for their game, but I also had to do various versions of him, like a child version of him as a baby, him as an old man in the future, him as an
Mm,
old man in a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sci-fi like post-apocalyptic future. So like I also kind of had to design some of those outfits off the fly because the contract was only for like 7 days.
Oh
They
wow.
needed like 7 characters completely done top to bottom in a week.
Oh wow. Well, and before you go on with that, because I want to ask you, because really I want younger viewers to kind of think about this, what they need to kind of take into account or ask before they agree to do it. A project.
Yeah.
What are the things that you need to think about and really ask to know that, okay, this is a serious project. They got the budget to pay me, type of thing, or you're aware of what's
Yeah.
going on coming in.
Yeah. So generally speaking, like if someone reaches out to me for work, I'll look them up. That'll be the first thing. Like if it's a situation where they're coming from a studio, I'll look up the studio just to see what information I can find on it if it's like actually a studio. And then I will also sort of look up that person, like if it's not from a studio, just to see where it is. I would say if you're young and you're just starting out, avoid anything that is not actually going to be paying you money. There's been an explosion of sort of, hey, we're a really
Yeah.
small group of people and we want to make something but we
Get a
don't have any
portfolio
money to.
piece.
Yeah, it's like, or rev share. It's like, well, we want this to be big, and when it does, we'll all, profit from it. And it's like, your project probably isn't at the point where maybe you should be soliciting rev
Yeah.
share from complete strangers out in the wild. Rev share should be something that you go in on with close friends that also have skills that
Yeah.
complement yours that you want to build this thing with. So I would say always be on the lookout for those. If anything is seriously reaching out to you, it should be with the hope that it is paying you, or with the hope that upfront, like, hey, this is a mod project, right? We're just working on a mod. We saw your work. We want to know if you want to work on the mod with us. There are no promises. There's no expectation of like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna launch on PlayStation and Xbox and like no. The humbler the project is in terms of like what their expectations are for the thing itself, especially if
Yeah.
it's not paying, the better.
Yeah. 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 Trust me, I've had a couple of projects like that myself. They want you to be, come on, be a part of the team and, just, reap the benefits of the success of it. I'm like,
Yeah.
So that didn't last long. People didn't stick around for that,
Yeah.
for that long,
People tend to
especially.
stick around longer when there's a paycheck.
Yeah. Or like I said, if you have a really deep relationship with them
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
know that you're, serious about putting the project in, they're willing to help you.
Yeah, and
That
that's an
type of thing.
investment in you as a personal relationship
As
at
a
that point.
personal relationship. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
where the relationships definitely come in. Everybody just jumping in. You know the drill. Hop into the comments. Say, hey, where you tuning in from. We've been having an amazing conversation with my man, Charles Metze III, senior character artist and what's the technical part of what you do?
So the technical part comes in terms of, say, a lot of the pipeline building stuff that I've done and the tool development stuff that I've done. Like I've helped establish like entire scanning pipelines from scratch. When COVID popped off and like virtual concerts were seen as like, well, we can't tour, but like we can, put on
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah,
virtual
yeah.
concert.
Yeah.
I got involved in like a bunch of those sorts of things, and the company I was working with at the time, we scanned all of the performers because we wanted to make sure that what was presented was their actual likeness, was their actual thing, but the turnarounds were really tight. So like I had a lot of scanning experience. So like I stood up the scan processing and pipeline. I processed all that stuff myself. In addition to that, like I also did some tool development work, trying to figure out the best way to like speed up things in our pipeline. I also do some material development work in like Unity or Unreal Engine.
Mm.
Eh, yeah, I've learned over the years that like apparently for at least in games, a lot of artists don't necessarily hop into sort of say the more technical side of things. So that left a sort of a wide open play field for me to sort of come in, and I'm not the world's greatest tech artist. I always say like I am a character artist as my specialization, but then I also have this nice, branch off here where like I do technical art. And the primary tool that I use for that is Houdini these days. I
Mm.
love Houdini.
Houdini's
It is
another one.
such such a cool tool. Whatever problem you want to solve when it comes to 3D modeling or animation or whatever, you can probably do it through Houdini.
Yeah, yeah. Houdini is definitely an industry standard and a workhorse for sure for
Oh
what it
God, yeah.
does. It's yeah, and I would definitely love. I don't think I've ever opened it or played with it myself, but
It'll break your brain at first. Just
yeah,
full disclosure, it'll break your brain for like
doesn't
the
take
first
much
week.
for me. I ain't gonna lie. I am not gonna lie. Blenders, enough to break my brain. So I can only imagine Houdini. But it does some amazing, like I said, particle effects and all that stuff is just anything done with particle
Oh
effects
yeah.
or water effects. That's Houdini. So anything you see pretty much with that particle or water has been done with Houdini. It is an amazing tool.
Yeah, I have a bunch of personal Houdini projects I've been tinkering with and working on. I've got like a whole city generator project I've been working on in Houdini. And professionally, like I've built whole character production pipelines like centered around like Houdini. So like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
fantastic tool.
Well, for that character artist or that creator that's looking to be a character, artist and a character designer,
Hmm.
what was that hardest first step for you when you got into an actual character design project? Say like the first one you did where you had to provide all of these assets and different things. What was that initial kind of scary, hard thing that you had to overcome and just get past doing?
I think it was sort of the scariest part was just stepping off the cliff initially, and writing down on the line like, yes, I accept this contract. I'm signing my name here for payment for this, because that made it real,
Real.
and that meant that it was time to deliver, right? And at that point, it comes down to you not burning and wasting time chasing things that aren't necessarily going to help get it done. It's really easy to get caught up in the weeds, especially when you're first starting out, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like, especially for characters, like, oh man, I need to sculpt every individual pore and every individual wrinkle, and it's like the game's a mobile game.
Yeah.
Do you even have the resolution to support that? Like, especially when you're first starting out, it's going to be very important as a character artist to really pay attention to what the actual intention of the characters is for the project. Is it a first person game? Is it a third person game? Is this going to be like Temple Run, where you're really only going to see the back of the character for
Yeah.
90% of the experience? Like, it's important to understand what role your work will actually have in the finished project, so that you can deliver the best optimized piece of art to suit the needs of the client.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, that you said that because as I'm talking to more and more character animators and artists and designers, you realize how much of a nuance and really deep learning and understanding of just things that go so below the surface. Like if you're a character animator,
Hmm.
just facial expressions and how
Oh yeah.
muscles underneath the face move and that type of thing. I never really thought about. And then, when if you're, I've been watching a lot of Aaron Blaze's animation. I'm really into his animation. He does a lot of animal
Hmm.
animations and stuff. And it's like, you got to know how animals really move in order to, and the muscles underneath their body, how they
Oh
move in order for
yeah.
you to create a real performance. And that was the thing that really got me because I thought I knew what animating was until I really started watching animators and what they did. Like really studied the muscles, the eye muscles, and
Yeah.
all that stuff underlying that just you don't think about.
And I guess that's the other side of the coin, is like reference, right? Like there's I think that's a real serious rookie mistake that not just character artists but like all artists like make, is using reference is not cheating. Like I've been working for like close to 11 years now, and like when I get like a piece of concept art and it's like make this, one of the first things I do is I ask, hey, do you have any call outs for things that you directly referenced when you were creating this that you want to make sure we properly get into the model? And if not, like, hey, if it's armor, I have folders filled with like, 15th century armor, 14th century, 13th century armor. I have folders filled with like fashion
Yeah.
designer like catalog stuff, so I can see how different fabrics and materials, like, reference is one of the most important things that you can start off any project with, so that you have a firm understanding of not only what you're making but how it's made.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you said that. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I remember like going, when I was going to school and, art institute. Yeah, reference. But then back then we were cutting them out of magazines and putting them in a folder. It's like, okay, I like this photo. I like this hairstyle type of thing. So reference goes a long way.
Yeah,
But
you had
yeah,
the
now
literal
they got like
folders.
pure ref. They got apps where you can download stuff. You don't have
Oh
to
yeah,
cut out.
pure ref is a
Yeah,
mainstay, like
pure
on my
ref.
on
I
my
like pure ref.
toolbar.
It's really good. So you don't have to clutter up a binder with magazine photos and stuff.
I mean, I still got some. I still actually have a pretty big physical library of art books, right? Like,
Yeah.
I remember I was in a thrift store one time and I walked out with like a book on airplanes. Not not
Mm.
not, not even just like, it was just different types of airplanes. So like, hey, this is a 747. This is what it looks like and how it's classified. And it's not that I intend to make airplanes or even 3D model them, but like, it's another like book on the shelf of potential references. It could be
Oh
I'm
yeah,
working on something
yeah,
that's a robot and I might need to know how a turbine looks, right?
yeah. I got a bunch, or I got not a bunch, but I got a couple of Frank Frazetta books.
Mm-hmm.
Just of all his illustrations and paintings and stuff, and it's just like you said, it's just great reference. That you can always go back to. I love hard copy. I guess it's I'm old school. I really like books.
No, I'm the
Um,
same way. Like I was saying,
um,
I got a shelf of like, and some of those books are actually really really rare now. Let's
wow.
think now that I think about it.
Yeah, and I know another which I'm trying to be more mindful of and do more of. But I know a friend of mine, Wayne Carnegie. He's always buying the art making of books when
Mm-hmm.
movies come out.
Yes.
The art making of, so you can just go through and reference. I remember I was looking through the art, the artwork for uh, Mitchell's and the Robots.
Oh, Mitchell's versus Machines. Yeah, that's
Mitchell's
an
versus
awesome
the
movie.
Machines. They
Yeah,
showed the art book for it. Man, it was just amazing. The stuff you pick up of how they work through things and how they come up with
the
this or come
problem
up with
solving.
that, problem
Yeah.
solve through stuff. So I try and be more mindful of buying books like that now, just art making of, because they're just great books to have. Really
Yeah, they're
great books to have.
fantastic references to have. I have a bunch of like those for films too. Like I have I think one of my favorites still is The Art of Pirates of the Caribbean. I
Mm-hmm.
think it covered like the first three films, and it's this huge like fake leather like book, and then like the art in it is just so gorgeous. But it's also down to like seeing how they problem solved like the visual development, because
Oh
at the end of
yeah,
the day, that's all this job is problem solving.
problem solving. How can I solve this problem? Which is why, again, those books and like behind, if you get a DVD watching the making of, oh
Oh
man,
yeah, I miss those. They don't they
those
don't they
those
don't
are
they don't really have
gold.
them anymore. They don't really have them anymore like that.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're very few. Like I said, some directors will like. I like that's why I like Guillermo. With Totoro, when he'll do
Yeah,
like a making of, like when he did Pinocchio, all that stuff was like, wow, man, I cannot believe all the stuff and problem solving that they did, and got a little mechanism of a cricket this small. And I'm like, man, you get a much better. I was telling the last guest, you get a much better appreciation for the skill and the art of a creator when you watch the making of something, and in their artisan skill.
I loved those. Like even before I got into this like line of work, the one of the when DVDs came out, the first thing that I would always do when like I was done watching the movie is go to the making of it and go to like the special effects segments where it
Yeah,
was like, and back then, like especially when DVDs were first coming out, I remember they always had complete breakdowns,
Yeah,
and it wasn't anything fancy. It was just, oh yeah, this is how we did this visual effect, and like this was our plate, this was the actual effect, this is what we rendered it in. I
yeah.
ate that up.
Oh man, yeah. That's and then you were talking about like those books, CG Talk and
Oh yeah,
animation magazine, where they gave you a DVD ROM sometimes of just different stuff, or they had articles about the making of this or the making of that. Like I said, it definitely gives you a better appreciation, and two, it shows you, like I said, okay, wow, I can make a living. People actually make a living doing this kind of stuff. It surprises me. Every artist I've talked to has had that moment. Like they
the
didn't know
epiphany.
that epiphany moment. Like they didn't know people actually got paid to do this stuff. I was like, wow.
And in hindsight, it's like, well, yeah, of course they did, you
Yeah, of course.
weirdo. But like in the moment, it doesn't click for you until like you have that epiphany, and it's like then you get to go back and you're like, wait a minute, so that means someone had to design that, and someone had to design that, and it's like you start seeing the whole world around you in a different light.
Oh man, and that's why I say exposure. It goes a long way. You know,
Yeah.
exposing kids early, and that's why I hope more schools are going into like the grade schools and really exposing kids to these opportunities that they wouldn't have thought were there, and these avenues wouldn't have thought were there. Um, so I'm hoping that these new creators out there now, you know, that are coming up are really going back. Like I said, you got creators like, you know, my friend Wayne Carnegie from Jamaica going back and really sewing into the Jamaican industry there.
Mhm.
And all these, you know, giving back so that the industry rises as a whole, type of thing, with everything that's coming out, and that we talked a little, you know, about, you know, the industry as it is now, and AI, and your thoughts on
Yeah.
it, on AI. Where do you see kind of gaming going? I'm thinking because now you're starting to see, you know, especially with AR, VR, a more interactive style of gaming. Where do you see kind of this gaming 5 years as you're looking in chunks, 5 years, 10 years down the line, and as you see how technology is moving, where do you see the gaming industry specifically?
Well, I think the gaming industry is in a really interesting but also tough spot right now, where um for instance, you brought up like the VR market. The VR market is still very, very small, for instance. There is a dedicated and core group of people there
Mm-hmm.
that will show up for like good products that speak to them, but at the same time that market is not so big that like a major developer or a major publisher can really invest the money to make like something truly cutting edge. So it's going to fall to indie developers to really carry the torch there. And what I'm seeing is that while I don't see indies as like necessarily saving the game industry, which is a narrative that a lot of people have held on to, I think indies, which are already pretty important, over the next 5 years are going to become colossally more important than they are now. And the next great, studios that we see 5 years from now are getting their start today in terms of starting up their development, finding their funding, and building out the next big projects. And 10 years from now, we're going to be looking back at a lot of these companies and going, these were the phoenixes that rose from the ashes of like the great upheavals of like the mid 20s. And it feels weird to say mid 20s now, but but
Yeah, it
yeah.
does. But do you see like 10, 15, maybe even 20 years out, kind of still the console route, or do you
Yeah,
see it more like in a more
I
futuristic visual way of interacting in a game and making it more really
I
RPG interactive, I guess?
I think consoles will still be around. I don't know necessarily what shape they will take, but consoles will still be around for one very, very simple reason. And it's because in order for the game industry to get to the colossal, multi-gigajillion size that it is now, that meant the market had to expand to encompass such a wide range of people. So your hardcore gamers who maybe want all the raw power, maybe are saying, well, I'm going to jump over into PC gaming because that's where the cutting edge is. That super core demographic is actually a really small piece of the pie. And the truth of the matter is, the average person playing games just wants to come home, they want to turn on their game box, they want to grab a controller, and they just want to play a game. They don't they and consoles occupy a very comfortable space to supply that because it's this really simple interface, it's this really simple environment. I know that if I, grab whatever game I have on my shelf and pop it in, even if it, needs a day one patch and I don't have the internet, that game will still play. That game will still work. I don't have to worry about config files. I don't have to worry about clunky interfaces. As much as I love VR, and I love VR. I have
Yeah,
headsets going back to an Oculus Rift development kit too. I still have to put the thing on over my head, I'm still, in terms of battery life, going to be
yeah,
playing for 2 to 3 hours, right?
yeah,
Consoles, so long as they are occupying this very comfortable, low barrier entry space, which is I put down, you know, well, before all the crazy tariff price hiking, I put down 300, $400, and I get a all-in-one experience that I don't have to think about. That's the power of like the console ecosystem. And so long
yeah.
as the game playing public is as big as it is, there will always be a home for consoles.
Mhm, mhm. I'm curious. Um, Back to your point you just made. How does or how has the tariff thing impacted the game industry, or has it?
I mean, it's from a pure like financial standpoint. There were reports, I think, like a year or two ago of like, for instance, Sony stockpiling PlayStations because they wanted to
Oh,
to shield the North
yeah,
American market for
yeah,
as long as possible, to the point where they were hiking prices in Europe because they needed to offset keeping the price as low as they could here for as long as they could.
yeah,
So like, and then that doesn't even get into the component cost, right? Like we're seeing the RAM cost explode across the board.
yeah.
Um,
That's what I
and
hear. Yeah,
and that's having a knock-on effect for like even stuff like hard drives. So SSD costs
yeah. Or
are
even video
exploding.
cards, or some
You
video
have
cards are
video
very,
cards
yeah,
are
very hard to
exploding,
find. Yeah,
and all of this stuff ends up impacting the game industry because like that means it's more expensive to develop your games because I have to develop my games on PC, right? So like if a company is needs to upgrade their hardware because they're working on some really cutting edge next gen sort of game stuff, their costs went up. The
yeah,
cost for the hardware to produce the consoles is going up. Microsoft had to increase, and Sony had to increase their price of a console. We've never before had a situation. Normally, at this part in the life cycle, the cost has come down a couple $100 instead of going up like a
yeah,
hundred.
yeah.
So the
Wow.
tariffs are definitely like affecting the game industry.
Crazy, 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 crazy. You know how it is, everybody. We're all feeling it in some kind of way, shape, or form, uh, for sure. We've been having a great conversation so far with my man Charles Metze, the third character artist and technical artist, game artist, um, for uh, games. Are you seeing I lost my train of thought here. Are you seeing this? No, I don't want to go that way. For the future of gaming, um, you were saying that it's you don't see it with at least VR for a while, and some of the
Yeah.
newer kind of technology for a while. Um, have you seen um, well, one, when you approach creating a game, are you only thinking PC, or is that the first? Is that your first thought, a PC versus a Mac game? Or
So like at the end of the day, technically speaking, like all games are PC games in that we have to develop them in a PC environment, right? So like when I'm in Unreal Engine, like I can't develop a in Unity or Unreal or even a proprietary game engine directly on my console. Like I have to develop it on PC, and when I'm doing my initial playtesting and stuff, that's going to be on PC. So in effect, all games in a way are kind of PC games, and we're looking, ahead to like, okay, where do we need to scale this production to in order to run on a console? What do we need to scale this production to in order to run on mobile? And that's a part of the planning process, in pre-production, where you're looking at like, well, yes, we're going to be developing on PC. Everything's going to be like blazing fast, 120 frames per second. But we also know our scale is this big. It's pulling in this much memory. The texture budget is this much. And we know that we have to target those numbers at console at some point if we plan on a console launch. And in this day and age, especially with how open most of the platforms are, if you have the means to target a console launch, you probably should be releasing on console as well as PC.
For like a company, what would be kind of a minimum kind of base level that they would say, okay, this game was successful, or versus what they feel that they would have to put into the game to create it?
So that's usually going to vary in terms of like the number of people working on it, the game itself, for instance. Like the numbers are going to be different for, say, an epic RPG where you have all of the story and all of these quests and all of these characters and all
So
these
what makes
monsters you're
like Call
fighting.
of Duty? What makes a game like Call of Duty just, the game? You know,
Yeah. So, and I mean, I've never worked on a Call of Duty, but at least just from my knowledge of like the industry, the numbers for that are basically going to come down to what Call of Duty wants to sell you is the multiplayer, because they want people to be in on that day one, and two, they always want to sell like, hey, we're pushing the most cutting edge graphics possible to bring you the most visceral experience possible. The higher your graphical fidelity, the more expensive your production is going to be, period. There are ways to mitigate that, but just when you're on the cutting edge of visuals, it's always going to be more specific. And then two, the multiplayer aspect. Multiplayer is always going to be more expensive to implement than just a single player thing, because it requires a lot more testing. It requires a lot more fine tuning than just an experience you're designing for one person. So while yeah, the numbers are more expensive for something like a Call of Duty, because Call of Duty cemented itself as like this annual, everybody's gonna hop all in on it
yeah.
type of event, the return on that investment is just insane.
Mm-hmm. Would you? As we come to the end of the show and wind this down, we've been having, man, we're an hour and a half into this. I always tell guests it goes by quick. It really does. Even
It really does.
2 hours, 3 hours, really, even that goes by really quick sometimes. But as we were kind of bring this train into the station here, for you, what one main advice, that one gem that you would want a character artist to know and be aware of?
I'm gonna go back to sort of like to the two big things that I think I've said today, which is one, if you're a character artist, don't be afraid to pull in as much reference as you think you need for whatever it is you're making. There's nothing wrong with reference. There's nothing wrong with learning, and lean into that, right? Like the idea of expanding your library, whether it be on your hard drive or on your bookshelf, should be a natural thing to you, because you want reference, you want to learn, you want to understand, and understanding is a part of problem solving, and that's ultimately your job. And the second thing would be, don't be a dick. Just.
Two very good gems there. Good reference, and don't be a dick. You've heard those words of advice. We're going to close this one out. This has been a fun conversation for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
It's definitely a great show to wind down this first quarter and to close out this first quarter of the season. Charles, again, I can't thank you enough for coming by and really, sharing. Definitely make sure you connect with Charles. You can find him on all these channels, and all this information will be on the show notes on the show notes when it goes up on the playlist. So definitely make sure that you check it out. Connect with him on LinkedIn. Hop on over to his art station. You can see a lot more of his work. I only showed a little fraction of it there. Definitely check out the Robot Cowboys of Mars. That sounds like an interesting game.
It's a fun thing.
Definitely, it's a board game.
Yeah, it's a tabletop role playing game that we're working on. And it's based on the Black Cowboys of the Wild West, but flung far into the future, and now everybody's a robot.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. Definitely go over, check it out, support it for sure. It sounds like a really cool idea. Yeah, that's a lot. But definitely gotta appreciate and gotta thank again Charles for definitely making this a great show. Mr. Dewan, appreciate you as always coming by. Absolutely agree, Charles. It's good to draw from memory, but looking at reference are super vital in improving your craft. Obviously, you gotta, you gotta have both. You gotta pull from reference, but then you gotta be able to create something and pull something at some point. It makes you better at just being able to sit down and then create something.
Exactly.
And it makes it easier. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've looked at enough references of hands. I can sit down and draw hands.
100%. Exactly.
I've looked at enough references watched enough references of this type of walk cycle. I can just hop in and create this type of walk cycle type of thing. So references is definitely not cheating and of the sort. So use it, make it your friend for sure. All righty. Charles, if you could hang out in the green room for just a second while I close out the show so I can holler at you afterwards, I would appreciate it. But everybody, again, please help me thank again Mr. Charles Metze III for coming on and great to us. Hang out in the green room for a second there, Charles, while I close this puppy out. Everybody, I cannot thank you enough for joining me in this last episode of the quarter. Before we, step into this short hiatus, super looking forward to it because we got some big things planned on. The Color of Motion coming into second quarter for sure. So definitely, and you may see some test live streaming during the hiatus because I'm going to be testing out the Instagram portion of it. So definitely be looking out for that. I'll probably be posting some past episodes as well. So we're definitely not going anywhere, and we're definitely not going to be invisible during the hiatus. So you will see us for sure. But definitely looking forward to taking a little bit of a break and coming back fresh and strong. All right. You know it. I love it when you guys give me a little bit of your time every Saturday afternoon. And I can't thank you enough for being the great audience and viewers that you are. And again, I can't thank my guests for coming on and sharing as well. You know the drill. We're not going to be back next week. But have a great rest of your Saturday. Have a even better productive week. And I will see you after this short hiatus. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody. Cheers, everybody.